Welcome to this interview. My name is Kenneth Muyingo, and with me I have a special guest who I will be interviewing. First, I just want to mention, if you watch this interview and you would like to write a book yourself, to become an author and write your first book, there's a link with this interview for you to join the group, become an author and write your first book, to connect with like-minded people who are doing the same. And with that said, I would like to get into the interview by asking my guest to say hello to our viewers and listeners and to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Yaeggy. This is kind of a different interview because I'm not really an author, rather I'm a translator. So I specialize in literary translations. I translate novels, short stories, anthologies, etc., from English to Spanish or Spanish to English.
Wow, that's amazing. So you speak and write both English and Spanish fluently to the extent that you can actually translate a whole book.
Yes, this is true. I'm originally from Guatemala. I was born in Guatemala, but my father, because of his work, moved to the US before I was 2 years old. So I grew up talking English. English is my native language, you could say, even though I was born in a Spanish-speaking country. But my entire family speaks Spanish. So I grew up speaking both English and Spanish. At the age of 10, we moved back to Guatemala. So my education from that point on was completely bilingual. I would have classes in both Spanish and English. So for example, I would have science in English and ciencias in Spanish, or social studies in English and estudios sociales in Spanish. So that was the way I grew up. And then I went to the US to do my bachelor's and my master's degree. So yeah, I've been speaking both English and Spanish my entire life.
Wow, that's amazing. And when did you get into translation?
Okay, so this is kind of a roundabout story as to how I got into translation, because originally I graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a master's degree in geophysics. The entire point was to work in the oil and gas industry. So I started working after I graduated for the Ministry of Energy and Mines in Guatemala. And of course, because I spoke English and Spanish, everyone there was like, Jennifer, can you tell me what this says? Jennifer, can you translate this document for me? Hey, listen, we need to have this in English because we have some potential people that are interested in exploring here, but the information is in Spanish. Can you translate it to English? So that was kind of like one of my unofficial duties working there. And that just continued during the 14 years that I worked in oil and gas. When the downturn happened in 2015, 2016 for the oil industry, I was living in Mexico at the time. I'm still living in Mexico right now. But I was part of the people that were laid off because of the downturn. So it was like, okay, well, oil and gas jobs are scarce right now. What can I do? What am I good at? What do I have experience in? And it was like, oh, I can try translating as something that I can dedicate my life to. So that's where I started. And I translated my very first book in 2016. August of 2016, it went live on Amazon. It was published on Amazon. And I've not looked back since.
Wow, that's amazing. Quite a journey. And when you look back from that first book of August 16, how many books has it been since?
Since then, it has been 15 books. My latest translation, number 15, just came out on Apple, on Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and I don't remember another 2 or 3 platforms also. Last week, actually, Friday last week.
Wow, that's good. And of all these 15 that you have translated, is there one that really like inspired you or spoke to you on a personal level?
I've translated a lot of different subjects. Usually the books that I look to translate are things that I would be interested in. So my favorite genres are like fantasy, science fiction, paranormal stuff, things like that. I think my favorite book has been Cat's Eye by a Spanish author. Her name is Gemma Herrero Virto. She is from Spain. Her book is in Spanish, so I translated it into English. What I really liked about that book is that besides being like a paranormal mystery thriller, which was really interesting and really exciting, at the end, there's a surprise ending and you don't have a single idea during the entire book who the murderer actually is until like the last 15 pages of the book, and then you're like, oh my God, how did I miss it?
Wow.
I liked it because the main character is a person who underwent a very challenging and very deep crisis of identity. So she was living her life and then something happened and that made her question everything about the way she had lived before. And the way she overcame it is that she started to work in something that she hadn't thought of as a career alternative until that moment. She started doing something because a friend of her asked her for her help. And she's like, hey, the main character is an anthropologist. She was a university professor, and one of her friends works in the police department, the local police department. So her friend says, hey, listen, we found this body. Could you help with the reconstruction, the facial reconstruction, so we can try to identify who it is? And that was something that the main character had never thought of doing. And through that, she's able not only to solve who the mystery of who the murderer is, but she changes her life around into a completely different direction. She becomes much more sure of herself. She becomes a stronger person. So I think that was a great book. That's really one of my favorites.
Wow, it sounds like a very captivating story.
It is. It was a very captivating story. So yes, definitely that's one of my favorite books that I've translated. And incidentally, it's also one of the translations that I think was easiest for me to do.
And with translation, for example, how long does it take you to get through an entire book?
Well, if I just sit down to concentrate on that book and translate it, I can usually do about 100,000 words in 6 months, just about.
Wow.
So yeah, the good thing is that I don't have to come up with the story. The story is already there. So I don't have the same problems that writers have, that I have to think about plot development, or I don't have to think about character development, because it's already there for me. I just have to find the way to make the author's words come to life in the other language.
In the other language.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so you mentioned that first you were doing these translations as just a side project during your employment in oil and gas company. And then they were asking you to translate things every now and then. And then with the downsizing, then they laid you off. And then was there sort of like a journey for you to decide, what am I going to do? And just curious, how did you zero in on translation? You said, let me just give this a go.
Well, like I said, I was thinking about things. What am I good at? what can I use to keep my family afloat? I have a daughter, she's 16 years old, and at the time we were living in Mexico, just the two of us. So I'm like, well, if I don't work, this is going to be a very big problem.
Yeah.
So it was just like introspection. What am I good at? What can I commercialize? What skills do I have that I can commercialize? And so I thought of all the other things that I did while I was working in oil and gas. And though I have a lot of skills there, the market really wasn't there for me to be able to commercialize them, because everybody and their cousin was in the same situation as I was. So everybody was starting consulting companies for oil and gas. Everybody was starting with courses for people in oil and gas. So it would have just been a huge amount of competition. So I'm like, okay, what separates me from everybody else? So
Translation.
that's translation. I'm fully native in English and Spanish, so I can put that to use. And that's how I started. So I started looking for translation companies, publishers that were interested in looking for translators. And on Facebook, coincidentally, I saw one that was advertising that they were looking for translators. So I applied, and that's where I started.
I see. That's quite a journey indeed. And looking back now, I think it was a wise decision being here, and then 15 books later and still counting.
Yep, it definitely was. It definitely was. I am much happier as a translator. I can work from home. I set my own schedule. I don't have a boss who is nitpicking everything I do and looking over my shoulder all the time. So, I mean, it's a huge change. It did take me a while to get used to it and get into a routine and realize that I had to manage my own time. So I wasn't going to have a schedule set by anybody else. I didn't have to go punch a time card or clock in or whatever. But if I didn't make myself sit down and work, I wasn't going to get anything done.
And that really points a lot to self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's watching us and they are in this period of transitioning, because with the way the world has been disrupted with the coronavirus, many people are actually reevaluating their employment situations. What would you share with them, knowing what you know from your journey of self-disciplining yourself to make a schedule for yourself and to follow it?
The first thing is definitely you have to have a schedule. You have to have limits for yourself. You can't just abandon your work, and you can't focus on it 100% either, because being at home, you're not going to be able to. We have constant interruptions. For example, my daughter is still in school, but suddenly she'll come by and she'll be like, "Hey mom, I'm hungry. What can I snack on?" And so that distracts me from what I was working on. Or I also have pets. I have 3 cats. So suddenly I'm working and then I think, hey, did you feed the cats? So yeah, you do have to set certain times and maintain your limits. That is really, really important. At the same time, you have to know that you need to be flexible, because some things are just going to pop up and you have to deal with them when they pop up, especially for people who have younger children. I have the advantage that my daughter's already 16, so she's pretty much self-sufficient. So that helps me a lot. That's been a really, really big help. But for people who have younger kids that are toddlers or early childhood, it can be a lot harder to separate that out.
And wow, that's great advice. Thank you so much. And looking back on this journey and where you are right now, would you, if you had a choice right now to make the decision that you made when you did in back then, would you make the decision again?
Yes, I definitely would. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's not all been roses. I wouldn't have been able to make it this far without the help of my family and my friends, because they supported me a lot, especially in the beginning when I wasn't making that much money, because being a translator, you also have to make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by consistently delivering a quality product every time that you work with someone. So in the beginning, I mean, some people took a risk on me, and I appreciate that very much, because I mean, I have no qualifications or academic qualifications as a translator, but I have experience, I know both languages, and the risk that they took paid off. So it's been hard, but I would definitely make the same decision again.
Amazing. And so you have mentioned friends and family being supportive. Would you mention any other group of people that have been helpful on this journey in becoming the translator that you are right now, 15 books later, besides your customers, your friends, and your family?
Yes, definitely. I'm part of a lot of translator groups on Facebook. I have, there's this website, it's called Prose, PROZ.com. That's dedicated to translation and linguistic professionals. They have forums, and they have a Facebook group, and they have every 2 weeks or so, there's a virtual meeting where translators from all over the world can get together and talk about things that are happening now, and industry, how it's evolving, and problems with clients, how do you solve them, how do you get more clients, what marketing things you can use, stuff like that. So that has been a tremendous help, definitely a tremendous help. And besides the translator groups, I'm also on several author groups, because even though I'm not creating the stories, I still need to understand how an author's mind works, so that I can then translate that to the readers who are going to be reading in another language.
Indeed. Wow. That's really powerful. So the aspect of networking with other translators has been helpful in empowering you to get on this journey to the point that you are now, and also like networking with authors to understand how they see things, so that you can be able to translate the messages, the books that you translate, in the way that the readers would like to receive them.
Exactly. So yes, definitely. I wouldn't have been able to do this alone. You see me sitting here by myself, but behind me, there's an entire network of professionals and family and friends that have allowed me to be where I am right now.
Indeed. Wow, thank you so much. And looking at how the world has been disrupted right now with the global pandemic, and lives have been disrupted, you mentioned something very powerful that happened for you when the oil and gas company was downsizing, and many people find themselves at that place right now. And knowing what you know, and having taken that journey when you did, what can you share with, if somebody's watching this interview and they're at that place and they're like, I don't know what to do next, I don't know how to navigate this, the foundation that I thought was under me has been removed and I didn't get noticed?
Yeah. I know it's very hard. I went through it. I lived through it. I was working on a project, and all of a sudden the money ran out of the project, and they're like, okay, we're going to put you on standby until the project resumes, which should have been 2 months later. And then 2 weeks after I was told I was going to be on standby, they're like, sorry, the project isn't going to resume. So thank you very much for your time. We'll call you if we need you.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah. So I can understand feeling that the rug has been pulled out from under you. I would say people who are going through that right now need, first of all, you need time to process that. So you can take a little time, take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to process that, move through your feelings. You're going to feel loss, you're going to feel grief. That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal to feel like that. So if you're going through that, don't worry. It does get better. Then once you feel like you can start looking for what else to do, I would say take 20 minutes to half an hour, write down what your skills are, write down what you're good at. And then on the other half of the paper, write down what interests you and see if you can try to make a match between them. Once you have that match, go online and look for something that involves both things. So for my case, I have been a bookworm my entire life. I have been reading books, oh good grief, maybe since I can remember, basically. When I was in school, instead of hanging out with my friends during recess, I'd go to the library to look for more books to read. And then at home, my mom and my dad also had a huge library of books, and I'd read whatever I could find from there. So you put that in one column, and then you put in the other column that I do know English and Spanish, and I can translate from one to the other, and you put them together, and now I'm a book translator.
What? That's quite a very powerful process that you just described there. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
You're very welcome. I mean, it's what worked for me. It may not work for everybody, but I mean, it's worth a shot.
And you talking about being a bookworm, what's your best book of all time, your favorite book of all time?
The other day there was a post on Facebook that asked this question, and honestly, I cannot say one single book. Yeah. I do not have a favorite book. I have favorite authors, definitely. People that I just love the way they write. But I cannot say I have one single favorite book.
I see. So who's your favorite author?
My favorite authors include Sherilyn Kenyon, though now I think she's publishing under the name Sherilyn McQueen. She is a paranormal fantasy romance writer. Christine Feehan, also paranormal fantasy romance writer. There was, I don't remember the name of this author. I remember the name of the series. It was the Xanth series. Piers Anthony. I read his books when I was a teenager, and they are hilarious. They're full of puns. They're just really enjoyable books. There was another series, the Dragon Riders of Pern series. This is an old series, like late 70s, early 80s, but I read the series also. I absolutely adored those books. Those were more sci-fi. So yeah, wow. Definitely series that I like, a lot of different authors that I like. I can't say I have one that I like above all the others.
I see. And this was very inspiring. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for making time for the interview. I'm inquiring, if somebody watches the interview and they have a book that they would like to inquire if you would be available to help them translate, what's the best way for them to contact you?
The best way is through either my Instagram or my Facebook page. So you can find me on Facebook as Jennifer Yaeggy Translations, or on Instagram, I believe it's JY translations or JY_ translations. So those would be the two best ways to find me.
We'll put the links with the interviews so that people can connect with you as far as this is concerned. And
okay, perfect.
It was very inspiring, like I said. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we have not been able to address in the interview?
No, I'm working on 2 more translations right now. One of them is a Regency romance by Alicia Cameron. I'm translating that from English to Spanish. It's the 3rd Regency romance that I've translated for her. I absolutely adore working with her. She is the best. And her stories are really sweet, and true love conquers all at the end. So yes, I am a closet romantic, just by day, romantic in my heart. And the other book that I'm translating is more of a mystery thriller. It's called The Cost of Crude by, I hope I say her name right, Inge Liz Goss. She is a best-selling author. I believe she is on USA Today bestseller list. And she searched me out specifically because of my background in the oil and gas industry so that I could translate her book. So I want to say thank you to her for giving me the opportunity, and hopefully Alicia Cameron's translation will come out before the end of this year, and the other one will come out somewhere around the 2nd quarter of next year.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for making time for the interview. And I will sure be keeping in touch with you as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Kenneth, for interviewing me. It was really my pleasure to meet you and to be here with you and to share with everybody who's watching.
You're welcome. Bye for now.